This is Free Talk Live. We're live tonight like we're live every night, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and we like it that way. 855-450-3733. That's 855-450-FREE. That's our toll-free number. If you would like to join in, we'd love to have you. And in studio tonight, we have myself, Chris.
And I'm Ian. We'll be joined by Rich Paul shortly.
Yeah, and Rich is on his way. So it's been an interesting couple days, Ian.
Has it for you?
Not just me, but I think for everyone.
What's going on?
Well, we have all sorts of turmoil, I think, regarding President Trump and his...
What's he doing now?
Well, it's not so much what he's doing, but we know that the Senate voted today to deny him funding for his wall.
Oh, yeah. You've got a story about this, right?
I think I do. If not, it's easy to find one.
Did I read that this will be his first veto in his entire term? That was a shock for me. I figured for sure he would have vetoed by something by now.
Not for lack of desire, I'm sure. But there is that whole thing, if I veto something, I don't want it overridden. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if he feels that he can do that or not. But we're likely to see some challenge on that. But who knows? Hey, it's
This is something we didn't talk about very much when it happened, I think because we were in Mexico at the time, back when Mark and I were broadcasting from Anarchapulco, and before that, this emergency declaration on the part of Trump. So I have to say, I honestly don't know a whole lot about, what the claim is, what it is that he's saying, he can now do, or what that emergency declaration actually contained.
Yeah, he came up with a lot of convoluted justifications for how he could act without Congress, using previously taxed money of yours. That's you, the listening audience. The government has already taken that money, and even though it may have been, for something for Homeland Security, saying, we're going to upgrade airports or something like that, Trump says no. We're going to build a wall because this is an emergency, Ian. It is an emergency. What's going on our southern border?
Quick, somebody panic.
That's basically the attitude. So that's kind of where Trump is. By invoking an emergency, then he has certain powers that have been granted him by the same Congress that is now saying you can't spend money on this. That's what governments do. They change the rules while the game is in progress. And Trump likes to change the rules. So even though this money was never really set aside specifically for that, by declaring it an emergency, he can say, well, I'm going to use all the money at my disposal to do this because it is an emergency.
Well, the doctrine of emergency has been around with the government for a long time.
Yes.
This is nothing new.
No, and it's been used frequently. A matter of fact, I think I was reading there are a couple emergency actions that were put in place by, was it? I'm trying to think if it was either Bush or like the second Bush, or maybe even by Clinton, where those things are actually still in power. They're still going on.
States of emergency that were never repealed.
Right.
This is what the conspiracy theorists have been saying for a long time.
Yeah, I think they may be onto something this time.
Yeah, the thing that I've read is that FDR was the first one to declare an emergency and not repeal it. I'm not.
Was
I'm
that
not
for
sure
gold
if that's
confiscation?
accurate. Quite possibly. I'm not sure what actions were related to the emergency, but I'm pretty sure it was a Great
I've heard that was one of them.
related thing.
I've heard the gold confiscation was one of them, but again, I've never really researched it.
It could be.
Maybe you know more. You can call in and tell us about it at 855-450-FREE here on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, but in other news, we'll come back to that one. But
sure.
in other news, the court rules that gun maker Remington can get sued over Newtown. This is coming.
Which one was Newtown? One of the shootings, right?
This was the shooting in Connecticut.
Oh, okay. The one that
Adam Lanza.
some people believe was totally fake.
On any one of these, there are people that believe that there is something fake, and I can't speak one way or another. I wasn't there.
Well, I'm just going to say one way. I think the idea that it's fake is pretty ridiculous. I mean, the idea that everybody who was involved in that is some kind of a so-called crisis actor, that people didn't actually have their children taken from them by violence on that day, just seems to be a level of delusion to me. Obviously, none of us were there, but come on. How do you fake that? That's nonsense.
And it underestimates the ruthlessness of the government. I mean, it's much easier to do what it's widely acknowledged that government did in Lakeland, Florida, which is basically know that there are somebody's about to blow, get 70 calls or something the Lakeland police got about the Florida shooter. Just ignore it. You don't need a conspiracy. You don't need to fake a shooting if you can just shove large populations full of psychotropic drugs and see what the 1 in a million reactions do.
Right. And then once he does go off the rails and start shooting, hide behind the police car.
Yes.
Yeah.
Broward's cowards.
Yeah, it's not just Broward. Remember,
Broward was the guy who hid behind the police car in.
That's the county sheriff.
Yeah, that was the Broward County sheriff.
But they let him go.
But I remember.
And now he's suing to get his job back.
Okay, but I remember officer safety going all the way back to 1998 or 7, whenever it was the Colorado shooting.
After Columbine.
Columbine was, because the officers in that case, if I recall correctly, hid outside until all the shooting stopped.
Well, that was policy back then. So the old way,
not now.
Was it?
No. So the old policy, and it was for active shooters, which is a new term too, right? Active shooters. We didn't have that term 10 years ago.
For today's active shooter, we have new sportswear.
Well, there were still so-called active shooters. There was that guy in the clock tower years ago,
way back in
Texas. What was his name?
I don't remember.
But in that case, they did what they do, and this policy maintained itself through Columbine, and that was, we are going to encircle, we are going to confine the shooter to one location, and we'll either wait him out or
let him shoot.
Well, they hadn't really had instances where they were just kind of going nuts and kept on shooting. They would either get a shot at them, like from a sniper or stuff like that. But you didn't rush in. After Columbine, the whole procedure changed to where active shooters are supposed to be attacked immediately. In other words, the first person happen? Well, by the time the police get there, which is going to be 5-10 minutes later, then they go in. But the idea is anyone,
or they don't go in. I swear, it seems like the stories are more frequently that the cops don't go in. Now, maybe they don't maybe it doesn't get reported when they do go in. But I've heard so many stories of police just waiting around outside. Officer safety is paramount. Is what they always say.
That was in Las Vegas. The police were supposedly outside the shooter's door for
pretty much through his whole shooting.
Really?
Yeah. Well, the two questions that I've heard from that is, first, how did they get there so fast? And 2, why did they stop and have a picnic once they were there instead of actually going in and doing something about it?
I don't know.
I don't think these things are fake, but I do think that there are a lot of lies that come to us about these school shootings. Just like 9/11, I don't believe any of the conspiracy theories, including the official story.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. In this case, gunmaker Remington can be sued over how it marketed the Bushmaster rifle used to kill. That's interesting.
AR-15?
Yes,
right?
Used to kill 20 children and 6 educators at Sandy Hook Elementary School in 2012. In other words, gunmaker Remington is being sued over how it marketed that specific rifle. This makes no sense. We'll find out. We'll talk more about that. 855-450 free. If you'd like to join the conversation, give us a call. Free Talk Live. This is Free Talk Live, 855-450-FREE. That's free as in freedom. Free as in no free lunch. Free as in free. That's 855-450-3733 if you are challenged by adding numbers to words like I am. And we've been talking about the Remington lawsuit. Remington being told that they can be sued over the Newtown shooting. But before we get back
I want to
into
hear
that,
about this.
Yeah, I do too. Before we get into that, though, I do want to tell you about Bitcoin.com. Bitcoin.com is your premier source for everything Bitcoin related. Bitcoin.com can help you choose a Bitcoin wallet, buy Bitcoin, and show you where you can spend your Bitcoin. You can also read the latest news or engage with the community on the Bitcoin forums. Learn more at Bitcoin.com. Yeah, it's interesting. You know, there are federal laws that do provide gun makers with some protections, unlike other industries where they're sort of set to fend for themselves. We're going to jump right into this. Again, from the Associated Press through MSNBC, Hartford, Connecticut gunmaker Remington can be sued over how it marketed the Bushmaster rifle used to kill 20 children and 6 educators in Sandy Hook Elementary School in 2012. A divided Connecticut Supreme Court ruled Thursday. Now, I think the wording there is really interesting. It's as if gunmaker Remington marketed this one specific rifle and Adam Lanza bought it because he saw an ad.
He didn't buy it, though.
He stole it. He stole it from his mother. But it's interesting that they state this as how they marketed the Bushmaster rifle used. So I'll take my issues with the Associated Press on that one. Justices issued a 4-3 decision that reinstated a wrongful death lawsuit and overturned a lower court ruling that the lawsuit was prohibited by a 2005 federal law that shields gun manufacturers from liability in most cases where their products are used in crimes. So that kind of makes sense to me. You know, if I build a car and somebody gets into that car and gets in an accident, if the car was sound, how is that my fault? Why should a car manufacturer be sued?
Yeah, I mean, it's the gun is supposed to kill people. I mean, that's what's supposed to happen when you pull the trigger, is that somebody's supposed to die.
Right.
Now, obviously, the gun is not morally responsible because the gun is not a moral agent. But, you know, if you pull the trigger and a bullet comes out, your gun is working fine.
Right.
I mean, there was a guy who, one of those incel characters, which the first time we heard about the incels, the involuntarily celibates, who took a van, I think he rented it from like U-Haul in Toronto, and then just mowed down people on the streets, just plowed into them, ran up on the sidewalk, and I think he killed 12 people.
It was, I remember that. This
was a couple years or a year or two ago.
Yeah, it wasn't too long ago.
You know, should U-Haul be held responsible for having such a great rental price on a van?
Really.
Well, in this case, what was the make of the van?
I don't know.
What was the make of the truck?
Ford. I'm going to guess Ford, but I don't know.
Then Ford, with following this logic, should be sued. Should be liable for those deaths.
Well, I don't know. What is the specific content of the commercials that they're complaining about? Where did Remington,
does the article get into
a commercial about what fun it is to shoot up your school and come get a rifle now and take out some of your classmates? Or what were they advertising that seemed beyond if you pull the trigger, a bullet will come out?
Footage of pouty teenage boys upset.
Right.
Is this how you're feeling about your school? Solve it with a Remington.
Come on. Start Monday with a bang.
Good God.
Sorry.
So does the story get into anything about what the court said?
We're not going to get into that. When they talk about gun manufacturers marketing their goods, what that pretty much means is they've included it in some product catalog. They've done a slick sheet. They've given it out at gun shows, and they've probably sent gun dealers some junk mail. saying, think about this. And they run ads in Field and Stream. That's marketing. It's not like you're buying network TV time to show during Modern Family what a great rifle the Bushmaster is.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of gun advertisements on TV.
That's interesting, and you are right. I cannot remember ever seeing one in modern times, and I wonder if there's some federal law like there is against, advertising alcohol and things like that.
I think alcohol you can advertise, but cigarettes you can't.
You can't show anyone drinking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can discuss it, but even that, I think, cigarette ads, it's another good example. The plaintiffs included a survivor and relatives of 9 people killed in the massacre. They argue the AR-15 style rifle used by shooter Adam Lanza is too dangerous for the public, and Remington glorified the weapon in marketing it to young people. Again, how are they marketing this to young people?
They made some memes, put it on the internet, apparently.
Probably.
This is just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. And
the idea that, and ultimately these are desperate people, whose children were slaughtered, right? Trying to find someone to blame besides the psychopath who did it. Trying to find somebody with deep pockets that they can go after, right? That's what this is about.
That's a few of these people, the people who are the actual plaintiffs of the suit, but then there's also a whole bunch of people who spend their whole lives waiting in the wings for somebody to get shot so that they can blame the gun manufacturers. They've already decided who to blame. They're just waiting for the next thing to blame them for.
You bet. We're going to jump to the phones where we have David from England. He's listening on the listen lines. David, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, thanks. The only way I can get to you right now is by phoning the station, so I'm looking for your website. But I wanted to talk about the Manafort decision recently.
Okay.
Yeah, well, so we've got a decision on the Manafort case, and he's been put in jail for
before you do this,
years.
can we recap who Manafort is? I honestly don't know.
Okay.
I've heard the name associated with
Paul
Trump.
Manafort.
I don't follow all these
Paul
criminals.
Manafort was his campaign manager.
Okay.
And eventually he was put in jail for 7 years because he lied to Congress, and he also...
Is that a crime, lying to Congress?
Contempt of Congress.
Well,
and
wow.
Just hold on. It's a whole bunch of crimes that he was found guilty for. Among them, tax evasion and laundering money.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Those are not real crimes, but all right. What else?
Not real crimes?
Where's the victim here?
So, okay. So now we have a new...
Okay, lying to
lawsuit.
Congress and so-called tax evasion. So we're talking about lying to the government, which to me is not a crime. Do you have an actual crime this person committed?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'd like to hear that coming up.
We're going to come back to you.
Yeah, hang on.
For 7 counts.
Okay, which count was the actual crime where there's a victim? That's what I want to hear about.
Right.
Can I get to the point?
Yes, you can.
You
in
can
moments.
in just a
Thank
moment, but we're going to put you on hold. We're going to get back to you, and we're going to discuss this. Do you have an opinion on Paul Manafort and his sentence? If so, stay tuned in. And
Bitcoin.com wants you to know about SaveItPurse.com. Since launching in 2014, over 200,000 users have saved an average of 15% for a combined $4 million using Bitcoin, or BTC. And now you can use Bitcoin Cash, BCH, to fund your account. You can save between 5 to 33% on things you're going to buy anyway when you shop using SaveItPurse.com. Add items to your cart, fund your account, select your discount, and save. SaveItPurse.com. Save atpurse.com.
this is Free Talk Live. 855-450-FREE is our toll-free number, or 855-450-3733. Of course, you can also hit us up with Discord at discord.lrn.fm. Discord is a pretty cool app. You can load it on your smartphone. You can load it on your PC or maybe your Mac. I think they have a client, for about everything. You can connect with your microphone, your high-speed internet connection, and talk to us as if you were sitting in the studio with us. That's at discord.lrn.fm. And we had previously been discussing the issue of Remington getting an okay to be sued. And we were talking to David, who wanted to discuss the Manafort decision. We're going to go back to David. David, are you still with us?
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah. So real quickly, David, Paul Manafort, like you said, he was the campaign manager for Trump in his election. At some point, I think he went through a couple
Probably
of
went
campaign
through more than
managers. Yeah. And then he got hit with a bunch of charges related, I think, from the Mueller investigations, and ended up getting charged on a number of them.
Right, but he was saying there was
some
real crimes, and I understand that the term crime is essentially defined by whatever the government says is illegal. Right. I only really consider crime to be something that has a victim. So you said there were 7 charges, and I'm wondering which one of those charges actually has a victim.
Well, the American people is the victim.
For example,
I doubt that. Found guilty of 2 counts of bank fraud.
Bank fraud.
So there's a victim.
So the bank would be the victim if it's bank fraud.
Okay.
What was the fraud that was committed? Do you know?
Well, how about false tax returns?
Well, there's no crime there. I mean, that's just people trying to keep their money. Yeah, I mean, that's just trying to keep your money away from the actual criminals who are the government.
He's an innocent man.
Huh?
So he's an innocent man.
Well, I don't know.
Well, I don't know if he's.
Yeah.
It's certainly not a crime to lie to a robber who's robbing you and say, I don't have any more money for you to take.
It's a crime to lie to Congress. You can get 5 years.
That's not a crime with a victim, though. Okay, so you're talking about Congress is a criminal enterprise. Okay, if there's a group of criminals with a gun to your head saying you have to talk to us.
Let me get to the point. I realize that now. Good night.
Okay,
well,
I was just asking you about the case.
That's
you want to call in and make a claim, I'm going to ask you to back up the claim. You're welcome to get to, whatever point it is you wanted to make. We didn't hang up on him, just to be clear.
Yeah. He absolutely hung up on us, and that's the point, though. And a lot of people they take issue with this idea that there has to be a victim. Can't the American people, can't the government be a victim? And by definition, no, you can't. You cannot say that some abstract collective group of people is, quote, a victim, and especially when that same group of people is going to do things that are unconstitutional, immoral. So defend yourself. And Ian rightfully called the guy out.
Yeah. There's certainly nothing wrong with lying in self-defense.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the point here.
Now, it does say here on AmericanBanker.com that in regards to the bank fraud allegations, he apparently was accused of lying to tax authorities about his income and offshore tax accounts, failing to file reports about those accounts, and defrauding banks to get loans. So, if he was actually committing fraud in order to get some sort of pecuniary benefit, then you could argue that the banks were the victims in those cases, but it's hard to really feel too sorry for banks given how protected they are by the government.
And generally, lying on a bank application is not considered fraud unless they can show that you had no intention to pay the loans, to pay it back.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
if you just my middle name's Bob, not Eugene. Is that lying on my bank application? Did I cause a crime to occur?
Yeah, and it's been my understanding is it's always been regarded that you didn't. Same thing with job applications.
Yeah, I think you make a good point there, Rich. If you say you had this long history of working somewhere and that history doesn't actually exist, but the bank doesn't check the claim and they go ahead and give you the loans, figuring, this person's got a long history of working. Mm-hmm. Even if that weren't true, if you've been making the payments on the loan, then there's no actual damage that's been done.
Yeah.
So,
well, apparently the topic tonight, though, is Paul Manafort.
Is it? Okay.
Evidently, because we have Dan in Nebraska.
Great.
He's listening on the TuneIn app, and he wants to talk about Paul Manafort. Dan, you're on Free Talk Live.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so I actually agree with the guy from just before.
Okay.
In that they're absolutely. Now, I understand, I guess, that we have some different standards about what a victim is, because, but in my opinion, the destruction that Paul Manafort very deliberately brought to the democracy in my country is damage to me, and it's damage.
What did he do exactly?
That he has subverted this country's electoral process and has contributed to somebody who may very well stop our country from being a Western-style liberal democracy.
Okay, so you don't like Trump. I got that. Right. But how is it that this Manafort guy, what was it?
What did he do that contributed to this?
What he did that contributed to this is that he colluded with a foreign power to get somebody in who would be divisive to our country and destroy it from the inside out.
Okay, well, being divisive isn't necessarily a bad thing. The government is in the business of doing violence, and violence is divisive. So that's kind of what he was elected to do. But
yeah, I understand where you're going with this. But for the caller, for Dan, do you feel like the election of Donald Trump in itself was like a clear and present danger to the United States? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I would say that, but what I'd like to add to that statement, because I don't feel like it's a very full statement, is that Russia deliberately backs people who he knows will be people that they know will be divisive and pit the different types of social and cultural factions of a country against each other.
Okay. What does that mean, divisive? Because, Hillary Clinton...
Hold on. Go ahead.
With Marine Le Pen in France and Brexit in Britain, because he wants to keep Britain and the UK and the United States isolationist and away from each other so they can't compete with Russia.
Okay.
That's what he wants. He wants to divide us up so it's easier.
Okay, all governments want to divide you. Just to be clear, this is their one of their favorite tactics is for governments to get people to go at each other's throats over stupid crap like, left and right and race and all that stuff. They want people to be divided so they'll ignore the fact that it's really the government that's the problem. That's what they want you to ignore, is that the government's the problem.
And I guess my other question would be, does that sovereignty, does not having your elections messed with because it's somebody else has a financial interest, does that extend to Chile? Does that extend to any of the other countries that we've messed with? The United States.
I think what we did in all of those South American countries, Augusto Pinochet in Guatemala, in Venezuela right now, absolutely horrible. We should keep our hands out of it.
On that we are agreed.
Empire, all right, I'm not pro-empire. All right, that is something I'm not.
Nor are we.
Okay, so you're just saying you don't like this Manafort guy because you believe he worked with the Russians to promote a political campaign?
And there's been no evidence of collusion with the Russians, of course.
There have been a lot of allegations. There's an investigation going on by the FBI that suggests that Trump was involved with building a Trump Tower in Moscow and had some sort of benefit being granted to him by Putin directly. So there's a lot of interesting allegations out there.
Everything that I've seen has said there's no evidence of collusion.
But I just don't care. I mean, if the Russians are buying advertisements promoting a political candidate, I really don't care about that.
Yeah, Dan, thank you so much for the call. 855-450-FREE. Do you have an opinion on Donald Trump, on Paul Manafort, on anything else? This is Free Talk Live. 855-450-FREE is our toll-free number. That's 855-450-3733. You can hit us up on Discord. You can find out more at discord.lrn.fm. And heck, you can even watch us. You can watch us on Twitch. Very cool platform, and we'd love to have more of you as subscribers on our Twitch channel. You can find out more at twitch.lrn.fm. Twitch is cool because you can actually see, hear, listen, interact with other users, and you get to see the smiling face of Rich Paul.
And, happy day.
if that's not worth the price of entry, then I don't know what is. Of course, Twitch is free, so you get to see Rich for free. But you can also sign up and you can like our channel. That's kind of cool. If you happen to be an Amazon.com Prime member, every month you are allowed to subscribe for free to some channel. We like it if you would subscribe to us.
Yep.
Yes. So subscribe to, is that under LRN.FM?
If you go to the twitch.lrn.fm, you look right below the video window. There's instructions on how to do that. But actually what I wanted to talk about with Twitch tonight was our new goal to try to reach what they call Twitch partner. So when you join Twitch as a streamer, because there's millions of people on the Twitch platform, for listeners that aren't familiar, it's the video game streaming platform. It launched back in 2011, and then Amazon purchased it a few years ago. And it's become the big competitor to YouTube as far as game streaming. And then a couple years ago, they expanded their categories to include things like what they call IRL streams, or in real life. And that's like where people just kind of, they're going to the store, they're cooking or whatever, they're streaming it and they're interacting with their stream viewers. And then there's also a talk shows and podcasts category. So that's the category under which we are found. And the goal is to reach this Twitch partner level, which is the higher level. There's a Twitch affiliate, so that's what you reach once you've gotten a certain level of streaming, an amount or a number of hours of streaming kind of under your belt within 30 days. That's easy for us. We're here every single night. We've also got the Call to Freedom, which airs from 4 to 7 Eastern Time before our show during weeknights, and Questioning Authority on the weekend. So we've got more than enough content on the channel, so we hit that level pretty quickly, and we've been at this for over a year now. The Twitch partner level requires us to have 75 concurrent viewers throughout an entire month. So basically, at any time that we're streaming, we have to hit over 75 viewers, I think, like on average, or something like that. Some sort of a calculation on a monthly or 30-day rolling basis, basically, to make that Twitch partner level. And if we can make that level, then that, from what I understand, opens up some options for us. It may allow us to actually buy a front page feature from Twitch. This is what I've heard. I'm not sure if it's true. But the idea would be we could just spend some amount of money, and then Twitch will feature our feed on the front page of its website, which will draw likely thousands of viewers to that platform.
Well, very cool.
So that's kind of the ultimate goal, but the way we want to get there is not to fake it, because you can fake it pretty easily. There's websites that'll allow you to buy viewers for like $50, and it's no big deal. But we'd like
it organic.
We want it to be real. I mean, is it organic when you ask somebody to do something? I don't know. Is that organic? Because organic would be like natural growth without encouraging it.
Well, that depends on whether the person you asked was grown without pesticide.
Yeah.
That's true, too.
So here the idea is to say, hey, could you just maybe do us a favor? If you like what we're doing here at Free Talk Live, you want to contribute to helping us get that level of Twitch partner, then one way to do that would be to have a browser window open to our channel at twitch.lrn.fm. And preferably you should be logged into a Twitch account while you're doing this. I think that might help. But just leave that browser window open, and then, essentially if you've got a work computer or a home computer, pick one and put that browser window on there. And then whenever you're on the computer, there we are. You can listen or not listen. But if you mute it, I think we still get, even if it's muted, I think we'll still be counted as a viewer on that stream. So obviously we prefer you listen more often than not, but just having it there and having it open 24/7 could help us. So please go to twitch.lrn.fm and help us do that. And basically just leave it open for the next few months if you can, and then we should be able to hit that Twitch partner.
In return, we, speaking for the Thursday crew, will certainly do our best to provide compelling and thoughtful entertainment for you.
Yeah, and if it's there, you might be more likely to listen more often.
Absolutely.
To us live. And just to be clear, I'm not asking anybody to commit fraud here. I want this to be an individual who's doing it. Please don't make multiple accounts or anything like that. We want these to be real, viewers for Twitch.
Absolutely. But we are going to go to the phones because we have Dave in New York, who
oh boy,
the topic here
what's
is
wrong tonight?
Freak of nature.
Something is always wrong if this is the Dave that I'm thinking it's going to be.
We never know. There are a lot of people, probably a lot of Daves in New York.
There are a lot of Daves in New York, but only one calls this show regularly.
And
so let's
is
hear it.
Watching us on YouTube. Dave, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey guys, how you doing? I have a friend of mine. out in Boston. He's been hitting me up about this girl that he knows, and he said he wants to bring her here to New York so we can both like bang her or do her or whatever. And he says he was hitting me up saying that he wants me to make a video.
Just to be clear,
let's
Dave,
hop in here real
don't
quick.
get any more graphic than you already have been. Okay, remember we're on the radio here.
You have reached the limit.
Your friend in Boston,
and my finger is on the dump button.
Yeah,
so go ahead.
So your friend in Boston wants to come. Where was the girl, in Boston or New York?
Yeah, my friend in Boston, he knows this girl, and he's been, putting pictures on the Discord, and she's, Anyway,
hold on, he's on which? Hold on, wait. Which Discord is he on? The LRN, the Free Talk Live Discord?
No. There's this other.
Which Discord do you? Which Discord do you hang out in, Dave?
One called DS Live. Or
What's
something.
that stand
DS
for?
Still lives or something.
DS. Can you say that on the radio?
D like in dog, S fucking save.
Dog Save Live.
No. It stands for Death Squad Still Lives or something. I don't know.
What's the Death Squad? Is that like a video game thing?
No. It was.
Is it a wrestling thing?
Anyway.
Yeah. What I want to know is why you hang out on this Discord. What's going on with it?
Me, this guy TJ out in Seattle, and my friend out in Boston. We all hang out in this Discord.
So the guy in Boston, just to be clear, he's on this Discord with you. He's posting pictures of this girl
who he wants to have sexual relations with,
and he wants you to have sexual relations with him and her.
Yeah, like a threesome kind of a thing.
Now, is he? Hold on, just to clarify, I got to ask more questions. Is he actually? Is this his girlfriend, or is this just some chick that he's attracted to that he knows?
I think he met her on Instagram or something.
Okay.
Or
doesn't know.
That's not actually meeting somebody. I'd just like to clarify. When you go on Instagram and you type, a message to somebody, you actually don't know who's responding.
And how long he has lived in his father's basement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but anyway, he said that he wants to bring her here so that we can both do her and stuff like that. He was also saying that he wants me to make a video about her, but I don't know anything really about her. He says, because she said, that I sent him a whole bunch of questions in an email to ask her.
Well, why would he want you to make a video about her?
If I can suggest, a couple things that this guy should ask this woman: what position did she play on the football team? If she did play football, I'm assuming. She
didn't play football. She did not play football.
Okay.
He met her
she's
on Instagram.
I know she's on Instagram, but you're working under the assumption that she is a she, and I'm working under the assumption that she probably at some point in her life played football because she's probably not a girl.
Well, I don't know if that means they played football.
No,
a lot of these people are just.
She never played football because I had seen pictures of this girl.
Sure. Did you take these pictures of this girl?
I have seen naked pictures of this girl on the Discord app.
Okay. Right. So no is the answer.
Let's presume that it's a real woman.
Okay.
Just for the sake of argument, even though there's no real proof.
It's a stretch for me, but I'm willing to go with that. Go ahead.
And okay, so
it sounds like there's some photographic evidence.
There's certainly plenty of pictures on the internet of women, but is there an actual woman behind the account is, I think, a valid question.
I think so, too.
Because a lot of these Instagram accounts are actually robots.
You may be getting catfish, Dave. That's what I'm saying.
What does that mean? Can you define that term? Can you define a catfish? What is that?
That's when someone is...
Hold on, Dave. We got to define what catfish is. So if you
I want to hear Dave's definition. Go ahead. Tell us about catfishing.
I know what a catfish is.
Great.
Okay,
tell us what it is.
Or anything. I'm not
you have to understand there are people listening to the conversation who may not know slang terms from the internet.
Right. Catfishing would be pretending to be someone else. The classic example
with the goal
of deceit, of fraud, of getting
money from that person.
Maybe money, maybe something else.
Mm-hmm. Hold on, Dave.
Yeah.
I want to hear more about your big plans.
We're going to bring Dave back.
Yeah, I want to bring Dave back.
Hey, Dave, we're going to bring you back after this break. But
is Dave going to actually get laid?
This is an important question we've been asking for years. 855-450-3733, 850-450. Jeez.
Damn, son.
I know.
We'll be back.
I think I just had a stroke.
With them.
Have a good night.
Business owners, you want more customers? Accept cryptocurrencies. There's people all around you just waiting to spend money at your store. If only you would take it. I know, you've been waiting till someone else makes it easy. Well, good news. HelpMeTakeBitcoin.com adds Bitcoin to your point of sale, totally free. Use the same equipment you already have, now with Bitcoin. And unlike credit cards, there's no fees. Let the guys at HelpMeTakeBitcoin.com bring new customers to your store. HelpMeTakeBitcoin.com.
Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. 855-450-3733. 855-450-FREE. Free is in freedom. And we've been kind of all over the board, and welcome to hour number 2. Joining you in studio, it's myself, Chris.
Rich Paul.
And I'm Ian.
And we've been taking calls. We had a number of calls about Paul Manafort for some reason. Paul Manafort in the news. We were discussing the Connecticut Supreme Court saying that, yep, you can sue Remington over the shooting at Sandy Hook, which is pretty crazy.
I want to get back into that if we get the chance, but we do have folks on the phone.
We do. We've got a couple calls on the phone.
Remington, because Remington happened to be in the same state.
There's more to that in that story, and I think Remington may be headquartered in, I'm not sure, but Remington was the manufacturer of the Bushmaster rifle. That was the rifle that Adam Lanza stole from his mother before committing those heinous crimes. Actually, he killed her too, which was
that's right. Killed her first.
Another heinous crime. But we have been just riveted by this story of Dave from New York, who has been discussing this planned tryst with some young lady and another friend from
acclaimed
Twitter,
friend,
and I should say a claimed lady, because she's on Instagram, and that's kind of where we left it. I have been playing Doubting Thomas, doubting whether said gorgeous woman is actually a gorgeous woman.
Now, did he say she was gorgeous? I don't remember any rating. Did we get a 1 to 10 from Dave?
That may have been just me embellishing. Let's find out. Dave, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this woman?
Let's say, first of all, her name is Mary, and she's in Boston. My friend TW met her on Instagram. I would say she's about maybe like a 6 or 7, maybe. And he said that he wants to bring her here to Poughkeepsie so that both of us can do it at the same time.
Now,
would you call that punching above your weight? Like, Dave, when you go out and meet girls, and hit on them, are you typically hitting in the 6 or 7 range, or are you a 4 to 5, or heck, maybe you're only going for maybe only the 9s and 10s find you compelling?
See, I like girls who wear nail polish, have sexy legs, have sexy feet, have small to moderate tits, and who also have hair down there,
Okay, that's a little bit more information than we need.
What about your friend?
Why the hair?
What about your? Well, okay. I don't know if we should get into that.
Okay, no. Let's not go there. Let's not go there. Forget I asked that, Dave.
Strike that from the record.
We don't want to know.
We could ask him that on our Twitch Uncensored After Show, which we can do on tonight if you want, Rich. After the show, we can invite Dave to call back. But Dave, I want to know about your friend.
So you like to stay after the show and Twitch for a while?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Dave, your friend in Boston. What's your friend's name?
His name is TW.
TW. Now, have you actually met TW in real life?
We have been friends since the long days of HowardShrine.net.
I don't know what that is.
I don't either. But
have you met him in real life?
It was a website. We've talked on Snapchat, we've talked on Facebook.
Okay.
So, and he plans on coming here to Poughkeepsie sometime.
Okay, so you've spoken.
So you guys have never hooked up?
No, and he is definitely a real person. You've at least video chatted.
Well, wait a minute. That's what I want to be clear on. I've never really used Snapchat. I understand that the idea is you take photos or videos, short photos or videos, and send them. So you're saying you've seen this person in video form speaking to you directly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So we have reason to believe that TW is a real person.
And probably really male.
My friend Marcy, he also makes YouTube videos.
Okay. Now, why would this girl want to come over and meet you and have sex with you if you've never actually met her before?
because he told me that he said she's some sort of freak of nature or something. I don't know, like
so she's
to,
easy,
like,
right?
Her,
that's the idea.
He wants to bring her here for I don't know. I
okay,
guess maybe
for the banging, we know that
stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what we've had a lot of questions about kind of the setup here. Why were you calling us about this situation?
Because I want to get some feedback from you guys, like why because he said he wants to bring her here and all that kind of stuff, but like I don't know anything really about her. I've never met her, all I saw was pictures,
Well,
on the Discord or whatever,
But David, you're almost a celebrity, at least with our listeners. I mean, people have been listening to Dave from Poughkeepsie calls for years and years. So maybe, do you think it's some of the celebrity that is Dave? Do you think that's at play?
If I was a celebrity, I would have gotten a YouTube play button by now, and I haven't.
But still, it still eludes you.
Dave, if you want to get a YouTube play button, you got to stop deleting your videos off of YouTube. That's step one. Look, so are you uncertain? You're actually kind of not sure if you want to go through with this. It sounds like
7 not good enough for you, bro.
Like because people say, "Oh, I'm famous." You guys say I'm famous, but yet I still have not gotten a YouTube play button. I've been on YouTube for years and years and years, and I've never gotten a YouTube play button.
I understand you're upset about that now,
but
we wanted to know more about the girl. Okay, so like,
what kind of girl seeks out a threesome with some
Dave.
guy from Boston who I guess is a Red Sox fan and Dave from Poughkeepsie? Now, what is going through the mind that says this is what I want to do on Friday night?
I don't know if he's a Red Sox fan or not. I really don't know. But he said, he met some girl on Instagram or whatever, and he said.
But Dave, you're not sure about this, right? You're calling us to get our opinion as to whether or not you should go through with this. Is that why you're on the phone with us tonight? Is that the reason you picked up the phone?
I've never met this girl, and he keeps telling me, to make a video about
I think it's
I
think Dave is legitimately concerned here. I mean, it's a risky activity to have sex with somebody you've never met.
Well, you're going to meet two people you've never met in real life.
If she's willing to just go and blindly have sex with men she's never met, then that does throw into question her judgment. So maybe that is a good reason to not go ahead and stick it in.
Yeah, and that's not
you
too...
also got to wonder what's lurking down there. If
that's what I'm saying.
Sight unseen, just going out. And
Dave, thanks for your call.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that one's just that's awfully risky.
Right. I mean, I understand you can wrap it up and there's precautions that can be taken, but is it really worth it? I don't know. Guess that's a decision you got to make, Dave.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, send me a picture of this girl on on Discord if you want to. I can't really give you better advice on whether or not you should bang her without seeing her.
Yeah, I would love to get Dave in our Discord. I don't think he's ever been in the Free Talk Live Discord at discord.lrn.fm.
And somebody who has done that is Gene the Christian Anarchist. Gene joins us from Discord. Gene, you're on Free Talk Live.
Well, that's going to be a tough one to follow, but
I hate to put anybody.
At least you sound way better.
I hate to put anybody in that position having to follow Dave. But what's on your mind, Gene?
I am calling about sex, but it's totally different than this previous caller.
What's your advice for Dave, though?
And now for something completely different.
Before you get to your point, what's your advice for Dave?
To wake up, I think.
Fair enough.
I don't think he's getting what he thinks he's getting.
I don't think so either.
I think you're likely right.
I think the New York guy has the hots for Dave, and this girl's just bait.
Just along for the ride.
All right, Dean, what's up?
Okay, so I'm calling about something I put in the show prep day before yesterday, I think, and that is. I've talked to you in the past about how I don't think that Bill Cosby's guilty. I also don't think Michael Jackson's guilty. And I put some links in the show prep for evidence that supports both those positions. However,
I agree with you on both of those, by the way, or at least I have significant questions about both of those cases.
Yes.
But go ahead.
So what has happened in the last 10 years, I guess, is that sex has become weaponized in a way that I can't even comprehend at this point. It's gotten to be so bad that any things that used to be pretty commonplace are all of a sudden worse than illegal. I mean, you're worthy of the death sentence if you do some of the stuff that was pretty common when I was young. the 18-year-old thing. That wasn't a big deal back in the 60s.
I hear
but
you,
nowadays they're ready to throw you out of a helicopter.
I hear you. We're going to get back to you right after we pay the bills by playing some ads. 855-450 free. This is Free Talk Live. This is Free Talk Live. 855-450-3733. 855-450 free. That's our toll-free number. If you'd like to join in, I can't promise you there's not going to be a little bit of a wait because we've had really busy phones for a Thursday night.
You never know when it's going to happen.
Yeah.
You never know.
But we like it. But we have been talking to Gene, the Christian anarchist, and he had some thoughts about Bill Cosby and sex and Michael Jackson and all sorts of things. Gene, you're back with us on Free Talk Live.
Yeah. And nobody's trying to support violence or rape or anything like that. I mean, that's absurd. No, people try and switch it around and say, "Oh, well, you're for rape." No, I'm not. That's absurd. But what I'm saying is that things like Quaaludes, and one of the articles I sent to the show prep was an article about what's that other comedian's
Bill Cosby?
No, the Richard Pryor's widow was talking about, how they did sex and had all kinds of drugs in the old days. And Quaaludes was one of the things that they did back then. Quaaludes was a recreational drug. So for Bill Cosby to bring a girl over and offer her Quaalude and to get drunk, that was what was going on back then. This was not a trick.
Right. Well, the claim was that he'd held on to them, right? That he had a big stash of Quaaludes that he held on to for like a couple of decades.
I was going to say, because you can't find those things anywhere.
And so what you're saying is you believe that Cosby administered these Quaaludes to these girls with their full knowledge and consent that they were actually Quaaludes rather than, some sort of medication that he might be passing them off as.
Yeah, the girl's in his bedroom. I mean, coming over to his house late at night to have some drinks and to get high, and then several years later, all of a sudden they come out with these allegations to hang the guy. So what I'm saying is that sex has become weaponized. They're digging things out of the closet that were considered normal at the time and hanging people for it today.
How about the new rules at colleges? Many of these colleges now that require some form of consent, what they call, I think, active consent or something like that, where basically at every step along the path towards intercourse, the person, the male, presumably has to ask for permission.
I'm going to touch your hair.
Is it all right if I move my hand
if I touch your hair?
I want to see an active consent porn flick. I want to see what that looks like.
It looks like about 4.5 hours long and boring.
It is horribly scary today. I mean, we have a 25-year-old son, and I'm just glad that he's not involved with any women, because quite frankly, getting involved with a woman these days is dangerous. Like almost like a death sentence. It can be. I mean, your life can be totally ruined tomorrow if somebody just makes some accusations that you touched them in the wrong way, or, said, you could even say something to offend them, and they're going to come at you with trying to put you away in prison and hurt you for the rest of your life. It's just the evil and the hate that seems to be generated through sex as a weapon is just, it's scary. It's downright scary.
I get you. Gene, thanks for the call. It's a good point. And we just reached this point of, it's beyond intolerance. It's like nothing can be tolerated. I mean, like no societal norm that we've lived with for thousands of years can no longer be respected. You cannot have it. We have to redo the rules of society to meet this new paradigm, and I don't track.
And it's interesting that this new Puritanism was from the left was kind of introduced as, we hate these Puritans on the right and they're all hung up about sex and we can't have free speech. So this was during the 60s when, Students for a Democratic Society was a free speech movement.
Yeah.
Now the left is saying, oh, no, free speech is bad. We don't want free speech. You can only speak if you agree with us.
Back to the phones. Nathan calling in from New Hampshire. He's listening on TuneIn. Nathan, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, I just wanted to go back briefly to the subject that you guys were on with Dave there and give a kudos to Chris. I dedicate this call to Chris.
Okay. Thank you.
Because Chris actually, for those of you who don't know, he runs a little shop, like a little gift shop. It's called Route 101, right?
I do.
That's right, route101gifts.com.
And at that shop, he goes out of his way and he actually loses money in some cases that he could have otherwise by telling people who are being scammed into using the Bitcoin ATM to stop it and to leave the store. And that's incredible. He's taking a financial hit to do that. And so I just wanted to give a shout out to Chris.
How did you know that?
Must be somebody I've spoken with at some level, but I've told other people too that sometimes people come in and they wish to use our Bitcoin vending machine to purchase cryptocurrency, to acquire it. Mm-hmm. And one of our rules in there is that we really don't care why you're buying it, and I really don't want to hear about it. But sometimes you do hear things.
Yep.
And I'm not even singling out one person here because this has happened multiple times. Ian, we've discussed this one before, but it is the middle-aged woman who has suddenly met her soulmate on
middle-aged or elderly?
Elderly is a better answer because they usually are. Elderly woman who has met their soulmate on the internet, and if only
they've never actually met in real life.
Never met in real life, but if she could help put him through college to pay some of these bills, then he'll finally be able to leave Africa and move here to the United States, and they can be together finally. And
are you saving their phone numbers? Because
absolutely do not.
Because I could use some college.
But sadly, with women, it is for elderly women. Sadly, it's usually the mysterious,
widowed,
often widowed. It is the mysterious man that they've met on the internet, and that's why she needs Bitcoin to send him, because that's the only thing he can use, which is never really the case.
Has it ever been successful? I mean, when you've explained it to these older women that come in and you lay it out for them, like, look, this guy probably is scamming you. I'm not comfortable letting you buy this.
In the half dozen or so times, it is. I've been able to explain that and get them to stop. I think exactly zero.
Oh.
They don't want to hear it.
It's love,
It is love. It is with men. It's love of cars, because men seem to be believing that this site that almost looks like eBay Motors, but it's not eBay Motors, does have a 2017, Mercedes.
For $5,000. What are the amounts they're asking for?
Usually it's only about $2,000 or $3,000.
Only $2,000 or $3,000
for the deposit, and then they'll be able to transport it.
Yeah, sure. We'll get that right down to you. Load it up on the back of one of those big old car truck things.
Yeah.
Car delivery.
It is
vehicles.
Really sad.
Well, thanks for pointing that out about Chris. I mean, it is a very nice thing that he does. It's not something you would normally wave out as to let people know, but that's very nice.
Thanks for the call, Nathan. Sadly, people do get scammed, and it doesn't matter what the technology is, it's going to happen. 855-450 free if you'd like to come back. This is Free Talk Live.
Go to themorganreport.com and receive updates and insights you will not find anywhere else on the web. You will discover how to grow and protect your wealth under all market conditions. The Free Morgan Report provides interviews, webinars, question and answer sessions, plus mind-blowing videos. As David Morgan says, let my passion create your wealth. Themorganreport.com. Themorganreport.com.
This is Free Talk Live. Free to call on our toll-free number, 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733, or hit us up on Discord. You can find out more at discord.lrn.fm. You can watch us on Twitch. You can watch us, I guess, still on YouTube, though we prefer
lower resolution.
Twitch. Yeah,
lower resolution.
It's not nearly as good. And you do want to watch the show, of course, because it's radio. And who doesn't want to watch the radio?
Well, the nice thing is you could still load us up over at twitch.lrn.fm and just listen. You don't actually have to watch. You can just put it in the background.
That's true.
And then do something else while you are tuned in. Speaking of YouTube, though, there is the new Free Talk Live clips, the video clips that are being uploaded on basically a daily basis, usually 1 or 2 per day. To basically take some of the best moments from previous episodes of Free Talk Live and turn them into shareable video clips. So you can go to clips.freetalklive.com and you will find those there. You can hit the subscribe button. By the way, it's not our channel. It's the Liberty Bits channel, which is run by an activist here, Eric Freerock. He's come out of retirement and has been doing a great job putting those videos up there. We really appreciate it. So we're actually helping grow his channel because he's the one doing the work. So
that he is.
Yeah, clips.freetalklive.com. And if you're following us on Twitter at twitter.freetalklive.com, on Mastodon at toot.freetalklive.com, and Telegram at telegram.freetalklive.com, you'll get links to all the new clips as they come out. So it's easy to follow us there, too.
Very cool. And we're going to head back to the phones where we have Jim calling in from Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Jim is listening or watching us on YouTube and wants to talk about Michael Jackson. Jim, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hello?
Jim, are you there? Jim.
I hear somebody there.
Are you there? Going once, going twice.
All right. Put him back on hold.
Yeah,
we'll see if the
that.
board op can raise him. You never know what happens when somebody goes on hold, and sometimes they're going through a drive-through or cell phone signal drops out. In that case, we could hear an open line. So he's definitely there. We'll get him back.
But fortunately, we have other callers hanging on. Sarah, you're on Free Talk Live.
Oh, yes. I just want to say that my activism of calling in about pedestrian safety has paid off because...
Hold on. Did somebody not get hit by a car?
I didn't get hit by a car.
Congratulations. Sarah, your activism is working out here. Rich,
she's raising
I haven't been hit by any cars.
You're all day?
Nope.
My whole life, I've never been hit by a car. Thank goodness.
She's keeping me safe from sharks, too.
Sarah, thank you for your service. So why do you say your activism is working?
Well, I have seen a new street design, the 4-car lane turned into 2-car lanes with bicycle lanes, and they have the curbs on the corners. They were raised up.
Hold on.
So
4 lanes go into 2 lanes with bicycle lanes? This sounds like a recipe for more accidents.
Well, it used to be 4-car lanes. The 2-car lanes going one way with a yellow paint in the middle.
Okay.
For you to stand on as a pedestrian. Now they have some kind of a pedestrian refuge in the middle.
Refuge.
They build an island.
A refuge.
Okay. It's a safe space from cars.
The Bundys are going to take over the pedestrian refuge now. It's going to be a huge standoff.
Okay, so you have this safe space from cars for pedestrians, and you have paint there that protects the pedestrians from high-speed vehicles.
I think they replaced the paint with an island.
Okay.
Well, the thing that I like about it the most is the intersections have the raised concrete corners. It used to be like really flat, and they would just talk on their cell phone and just run you over when you're standing there.
Wait, who does this?
It could happen.
It's called an accident. I don't think anybody sits there and just decides to run somebody over.
It could happen. She's
Accidents
saying
sometimes
happen.
They do.
She's saying that this berm or whatever it is, some sort of concrete raised edge, is going to increase safety. Okay. Right, Sarah? And you believe that it's your phone calls that have made that happen?
Well, yeah.
Was it your idea? Were you the one who came up with the raised concrete?
Yeah.
Protective barrier thing?
No, the raised corners corners, I never mentioned about that. I thought the smooth corners for them was good enough for me. I've never come up with that.
Okay, well, it sounds like you're trying to claim credit.
That's why we're asking.
Well, my credit is that I raised up that 86 pedestrians were killed last year in New Mexico.
So you've raised awareness.
So you're saying you raised awareness of the problem, and you believe that this solution came about because of your phone calls to talk radio shows. Is that right?
Right, because enough people heard about it, and somebody came up with this idea. Well, we're going to raise the curb so that the drivers don't want to run into a curb and scratch their car up. They don't mind running over a pedestrian.
Does this just
I'm sure pedestrians will break your car too.
Is this curb such that it just launches the vehicle over the pedestrian?
Well, it's a height of a little curb, and it has two openings, and then there's a little. You have to get the picture of it. Dooney Boulevard.
If you actually had internet connection, you could take a picture of this and you could send it to us, so we'd actually have a better description of what this is. I'm imagining just a raised concrete barrier protecting the area at which a person would cross over the intersection. Is that what you're talking about? How high is this barrier?
It's about like a 1 foot and a foot high, like a regular curb.
Okay.
But,
a regular curb is about 6 inches.
But wait, you're saying it's on top of the regular curb, meaning there's the curb and then there's like another foot of concrete just kind of like as a barrier? Is that what you're saying?
Uber curb.
No, it's right on the corner. Remember how it used to be just smooth?
I've never been to Albuquerque.
I know where you're talking, like on the corner. Like right on the corner, it would go down flat so that people in wheelchairs can make it up. Is that what you're talking about?
But now it has a buffer, like a little medium buffer and a buffer. It still does let you have opening, but it does have a raised curb.
It's all thanks to you, Sarah. You're saving lives.
You are
with
saving
your talk radio calls.
Exactly.
Go pat yourself on the back.
Pat yourself, and thank you for your call, Sarah. I'm just having a really hard time visualizing that.
I'm still not sure.
I think it's just one of those curbs with the concrete in the middle, like you normally see in parking lots and such.
You're just talking about like a median then, or something like that.
I think that's what she's talking about, is they had a median that was just painted yellow lines on the asphalt, and then they came in and built one of these islands.
Okay, could be.
And that's what it is.
If that's the case, if it's a median, it's not going to stop any cars from rolling up there.
If it saves just one life, Ian, then it's worth any amount of money. Any amount of money. That is the lesson here. In Sarah's mind, if it saves just one life.
Well, when it's not her money.
Even if it is her money, because she's doing her part, and she thinks that you need to do your part too, Ian.
I don't think she's ever
save a lot of more lives by ending the wars, I think.
For sure.
Than building curbs.
I would agree.
I don't think Sarah would disagree with that. I don't think she's in favor of most of the wars.
No, I don't think she is either. But hey, who knows? It's Sarah. But we were talking a long time ago, at least about the case of Connecticut versus Remington, and where they were at with their lawsuit. So Remington is the manufacturer of the Bushmaster rifle. That rifle was used in a school shooting, the Sandy Hook school shooting in 2012, and justices have just issued a 4-3 decision that reinstated a wrongful death lawsuit and overturned a lower court ruling that the lawsuit was prohibited. The plaintiffs included a survivor and relatives of 9 people killed in the massacre. They argue the AR-15 style rifle used by shooter Adam Lanza is too dangerous for the public, and Remington glorified the weapon in marketing it to young people. We'll discuss that after we come back. And your calls and thoughts. 855-450-FREE. This is Free Talk Live. This is Free Talk Live. 855-450-FREE is our toll-free number. That's 855-450-3733. What's on your mind? Give us a call. We'd love to chat about it. We've been discussing the news coming out of Connecticut that the Connecticut Supreme Court has ruled that Remington can be sued in wrongful death lawsuits. In this case, it has to do with the AR-15, the Bushmaster rifle that was sold by Remington to Adam Lanza's mother, and Adam Lanza then stole and used in the Sandy Hook Elementary School shootings. Remington has denied wrongdoing and previously insisted it can't be sued under federal law. The majority of the high court agreed with most of the lower court's rulings and dismissed most of the lawsuit's allegations, but allowed a wrongful marketing claim to proceed. A wrongful marketing claim? Rich,
marketing malpractice.
Marketing malpractice. Evidently, they lied when they said that these things can kill people.
But they can.
Evidently. Quote, the regulation of advertising that threatens the public's health, safety, and morals has long been considered a core exercise of the state's police powers, unquote. Justice Richard Palmer wrote for the majority. So there you go, folks. Lanza, 20, shot his way into the Locke School in Newtown on December 14th, 2012, and killed 20 first graders and 6 educators with a Bushmaster XM15 E2S rifle similar to an AR-15. He shot his mother to death in their Newtown home beforehand and killed himself as police arrived at the school. Connecticut's child advocate said Lanza's severe and deteriorating mental health problems, his preoccupation with violence, and access to his mother's legal weapons, quote, proved a recipe for mass murder, unquote.
So just I'm looking at the Hartford Courant, which is a newspaper down there.
Yeah.
That has a pretty detailed report on this decision. 4-3 decision out of the court ruled that Sandy Hook family should have the opportunity to prove that Remington violated the Connecticut Unfair Trade Practices Act, CUTPA, by marketing what it knew was a weapon designed for military use to civilians such as Nancy and Adam Lanza. So they're not saying this has to do with...
Designed for military use. How do they say that? I mean, the AR-15 is not a military weapon.
But
it
has looks
never
like
been a military weapon.
It looks like one, Rich. How do you answer that?
Well...
It looks scary, Rich. Answer the question, Rich.
I'm dumbfounded. I don't even know how to answer it. Yes, it looks similar to fully automatic weapons that are used by the military. Who cares?
Well, and here's what kills me is there are never groups up in arms over the Ruger Mini 14.
And what is that?
Ruger Mini 14 is... It looks like a rifle. It looks like a hunting rifle, and it's often used for hunting varmints and stuff like that. It's got a wooden stock, and it's got a bolt, and it's got a place where you put a magazine, and it accepts 5.56 millimeter rounds. In other words, folks, it shoots the exact same round that comes out of an AR-15. It's completely semi-automatic. You can stick a 30-round magazine in it. But it doesn't look scary.
Because it's not black.
This
is all about racism. Gun racism is what this is.
Yeah, at some point. Black rifles matter.
Black rifles matter.
Yeah.
Just get yourself a Hello Kitty one. Then you can solve that problem.
I've seen
no longer intimidating.
I've seen them. I've seen pink AR-15s left and right.
Vermin Supreme had one that looked like a unicorn.
Why not?
Actually, the horn was the barrel.
Nice.
Yeah.
But there have been a lot of people that have played around with their builds, and they've done interesting things. The thing is that regardless of what silly, in some cases, silly accessory I put on a rifle, and I've seen guys that have like 3 different hand grips on an AR-15, which just makes it insane to even try to shoot. Like, in case I'm shooting at an angle, I want to be able to hold it. And they put like all these optics, and they'll put these crazy flash suppressors on them and all these things, and it does not make the gun any more lethal. It usually ends up making the gun heavier and just.
I think it always ends up making the gun heavier. I mean, unless you're removing something too.
And guess what I do when I do a build? I try to figure out what's the least amount of stuff I can put on this thing to make it work.
Keep it simple.
Yeah. Right. So I have less to go wrong, and it's less I got to lug around.
I have the conclusion.
And all those bells and whistles can give you away in the field.
Oh, there we go.
So,
please.
In a very lengthy, as you know, judges in courts tend to churn out lengthy orders and, opinions. And I'm not even sure how many pages this is because of the viewer I'm looking at it in. But down toward the bottom here, I've actually got this is the decision from the Connecticut Supreme Court. If you're interested, I can share their conclusion. I think that will kind of wrap up. So they write, it is, of course, possible that Congress intended to broadly immunize firearms sellers from liability for the sort of egregious misconduct that the plaintiffs have alleged, but failed to effectively express that intent in the language of PLCAA. Now we need to get a definition of what that stands for. PLCAA is the Federal Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Acts. So that is the federal law that they're saying, well, we think that there's an argument here.
Well, the federal law, though, is designed to protect gun manufacturers from liability.
That's right.
What I want to say is what liability, because usually you have to be able to show a chain of causation.
Right.
There's not even an allegation, as I understand it, that Adam Lanza saw this commercial and that's what made him go all crazy.
They just marketed
it in general. They marketed it, and then he happened to get one, and then he happened to shoot some people, and we're going to sue them for bad marketing. That doesn't make any sense.
And his mother bought it. He didn't buy the gun.
Yeah, he
stole the gun, and then he killed his mother with it.
Yeah,
I'll bet you $1 she never saw any of these advertisements.
Of course not.
Yeah, and I suspect that he would have stolen whatever gun she happened to have.
Right.
Right. It was the gun he had the closest access to. The easiest.
Maybe not a pink one. That might have been maybe women should buy pink guns so men are less liable to steal them. Although I don't know.
Yeah. So the conclusion here is saying that Congress wasn't clear. That's what the court is saying, that Congress wasn't clear enough in this PLCAA Liability Act. They say if that's the case, and in light of the difficulties that the federal courts have faced in attempting to distill a clear rule or guiding principle from the predicate exception, Congress may wish to revisit the issue and clarify its intentions. We are confident, however, that if there were credible allegations that a firearms seller had run explicit advertisements depicting and glorifying school shootings and promoted its products in video games, such as School Shooting, that glorify and reward such unlawful conduct. Now, has this actually happened?
None of these things are alleged.
Right.
None of these things.
Not clear.
Let's imagine a case.
Right. If that.
But I think that's his intent. Is he's attempting to sketch out the most egregious thing that you could do in this area.
If that's right, they're saying. I think.
Right, but they are also saying that then that person should be allowed to sue. They're not coming out. If I'm understanding this correctly, they're not coming out and saying Remington is liable. What they're arguing
because
simply
this is an appeals court.
Correct.
They're not charged with evaluating the evidence. They're only charged with finding whether there's some possible theory under which there could be liability.
Right.
So it sounds like this appeals court made the right decision, and that this case is then going to go back to lower court and lose, is my prediction.
I would hope
there's
so.
a chance of that happening here. So going on. Says, and if a troubled young man who watched those advertisements and played those games were inspired thereby to commit a terrible crime like the ones involved in the Sandy Hook massacre, then even the most ardent sponsors of PLCAA would not have wanted to bar a consumer protection lawsuit seeking to hold the supplier accountable for the injuries wrought by such unscrupulous marketing practices. That is not this case, and yet the underlying legal principles are no different. Once we accept the premise that Congress did not intend to immunize firearms suppliers who engage in truly unethical and irresponsible marketing practices promoting criminal conduct, and given that statutes such as CUTPA, which we need to get that definition for you here. CUTPA is the Connecticut.
Law. Oh, Connecticut.
No.
Law.
The first one was the federal one. This one is the Connecticut Unfair Trade Practices Act. So I'll finish up with their opinion. There's only a couple more paragraphs, relatively short for legalese.
Yeah,
coming up.
Yeah, and we'll get to that when we get back. 855-450 free if you would like to join in the conversation. What do you think about gun manufacturer liability. Should they be protected? Or should some common sense maybe work its way in? 855-450-FREE, Free Talk Live.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, Mark at freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live in our third hour. What? You mean we've been on here for 2 hours and we're going one more? That's what we do every day of the week, 365 days a year. And what's really cool about this show, and I'm not bragging because I didn't come up with the idea, but I always liked it, was it is open phones. This is an open phones radio program that if you don't like the subject we're talking about, bring up another one, and we're happy to discuss it. If it's interesting, we'll let you discuss it even a little bit longer. 855-450-FREE is how to get in touch with us. That's our toll-free number. That's 855-450-3733, or you can hit us up on Discord, a very cool app that allows you to sound when you call in like you're right here in the studio with us. You can find out more at discord.lrn.fm. And Ian's been reading another article regarding this decision by the Connecticut Supreme Court that will allow Remington, and supposedly kind of opens the door to all gun manufacturers, to be held liable for the acts of insane people who use their products to kill other people. And this is a bugaboo to me. This is one of those things that, you can't.
You're an oath keeper, aren't you?
I was an oath keeper.
Really? You're not anymore?
Nah.
What happened?
Broke your oath?
No, I think I've always upheld my oath. My oath was to the Constitution. It wasn't to any particular government or set of thugs that was in government at a particular time.
Mm-hmm.
But Oathkeepers, I don't think is the same organization it was when I joined, and I guess I've had not a falling out. I don't think they care one way or another, other than they, I'm sure, miss my $35 a year, which I happily gave them when I was an Oathkeeper.
Is it the war thing? Are they pro-war?
Well, no, they're not. They're not really pro-war, and they were supposed to be kind of apolitical. That they wanted to talk about constitutional issues, and I completely supported them on that.
Okay, you can't talk about a constitutional issue while being apolitical. That doesn't work.
Well, there is.
The Constitution is by its very nature a political document. It's the root of political documents in America.
And realized that when I joined Oathkeepers, I was in, I would say, a transitional phase in my life where I was coming from a very conservative background into a more libertarian mindset. But Oathkeepers ended up, I don't want to say, and I don't want to disparage anyone with the Oathkeepers organization, but if you're a member of Oathkeepers, then you may have seen more effort spent on raising money, and there were certainly some questions about whether that money was being spent properly, and whether it was
or just being lavished on the administrators, that kind of thing,
something like that, and whether things that were put going to a certain specific cause actually ended up there, or they ended up somewhere else. And
so many different organizations just seem to exist to get donations.
Yeah.
And it's like they just gobble up all these donations, and then what do they do exactly?
Yeah.
Well, it's a catch-22 because you have to build a marketing organization. If you're going to have an organization, you have to raise money.
Sure.
But at the same time, you don't want that to become the focus of the organization, and that is something that can happen because if all organizations fight for their own survival and growth.
Yeah, and they were growing. They were growing without a lot of the things that Oathkeepers ended up becoming. So there were a lot of great things that I think Oathkeepers did. I think standing up and showing up at Bundy Ranch in a large number, that was a good thing.
Yeah, I respected that.
Right, but that, like I said, I think what it is, it comes down to is I'm good with an organization for a year or two, and then I'm like, then you start to...
The cracks start to show, right?
They do, and you become a little disillusioned with what's going on. But before we get back into that story, and Ian's going to tell us a little bit about what's going on in court, we're going to go to Dave in New Mexico. Dave, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, just an update on this Judge Deborah Davis Walker, the family court judge that got popped for DWI. She got pulled over and arrested when she caused an accident making a U-turn.
Dave is like the TMZ of Albuquerque politics, and the stories are great. I mean, we've followed, at least Googled or Google imaged a couple of these defendants, and
I love it when a hypocrite gets taken down when they're in the government. That just is refreshing to me.
Okay, so is this about the? Well, go ahead.
Yeah, what's going on with the drunk judge?
Yeah, she got sentenced today, so we can see how this compares to how we're treated when those of us.
The drunk judge who actually caused an accident, because it's one thing to drunkenly drive and just get pulled over without having caused an accident. She caused an accident. All right,
was she sober as a judge?
Apparently, lay it on us.
That might not be a high bar to reach. Get it?
She got 1 year of probation is what she got.
Wait, a whole year?
Yeah, probation. So no jail time. When she was arrested, she was in and out of the jail in less than 2 hours, which is not consistent with
fast.
Yeah, it's pretty fast from my experience. I've never been arrested on. Well, actually, they did arrest me for DWI, but it turned out that they were wrong. I blew 0000, but I still spent most of the night in jail waiting for them to figure out they had messed up.
I've had arrests that ended in 2 hours. I'll admit.
Okay.
Not all of them and not most of them, but I have had some.
Okay, but wait, on this sentence for probation, a lot of times there's terms to the probation. Is she allowed to drink while she's on this year-long probation?
Well, I will find out. Today is the first day that the news put out that she had been sentenced, so I'll find out what her terms of probation are. She had better. Her terms of probation had better be no alcohol, because if it's not no alcohol, the rest of us would have gotten no alcohol, so for sure, So she had better be, for her probation. Well, I got to find out if it's unsupervised or supervised. Now, most people that get arrested on a DWI and get convicted and they get probation, their probation should and usually does contain, it's supervised, and they got P-tests every so often. Otherwise, what's the point of the probation? Maybe she got unsupervised. I don't know. But usually, if you cause an accident because you're drunk, you get arrested, you get convicted.
So what was her name? Judge what?
Deborah Walker?
Deborah with an H, Davis Walker, a.k.a. Deborah Walker.
Yeah.
They put me on no alcohol bail for having machete, and I was thinking, this is the time for me to get drunk. You guys have my machete.
So I'm like looking at her picture. Evidently, she's about 5'4" 3/8", judging by her picture. It looks like she's wearing orange in her mugshot. Did they give you a smock, or was she just drunk wearing orange?
She's probably drunk wearing orange, because that doesn't because if she's in and out of there in 2 hours, they wouldn't make her change clothes. Plus, underneath that orange, I see there's something black, so she's got something of her own under it.
Too.
I don't see what. I don't see why they would have made.
Maybe it's a completely black outfit, but the top part is new.
It may be over
because orange
robes.
is the new black.
Oh, there you go, Rich.
There's a brief article over at KOB, which is a major radio station out that way. It says Walker will be required to follow a number of conditions. She will have to install an interlock system in her car, which is the tube that people have to blow into to start the car. community service. She will have to pay court fees and fines and complete a number of required programs. So it does not say that she is not allowed to drink.
Yeah, that's
Really?
interesting.
She can drink, but she just can't drive, according to this.
I would be very surprised.
Thanks for the call tonight,
thanks,
David.
Dave.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's interesting that somehow those guys just aren't treated like the rest of us.
Not a surprise, though, is it?
Not a surprise, and I'm being completely facetious. 855-450-FREE. What do you think? This is Free Talk Live. This is Free Talk Live. We are live yet again, like we are every night, 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. And we've been all over the board. It's been a good night for me because I like to take lots of phone calls, and we had a whole slurry of phone calls early on. That's always fun. And if you've got something to say, or you've got a topic you'd like to discuss, or if you've got questions for us, it doesn't matter. Give us a call. You can hit us up on our toll-free line at 855-450-FREE, or you can use Discord at discord.lrn.fm. That will require that you do load a little client on your portable device or on your laptop, but you can hit us up and you can talk to us, and we really appreciate your support. And one person I do want to thank their support for is Carl. Carl is a platinum amplifier, and in Free Talk Live parlance, amplifiers are people that have taken part or do take part in our AMP program. AMP stands for Advertise, Market, and Promote. You can find out more at amp.freetalklive.com. But as a platinum supporter, Carl is giving us at least $25 a month.
Yeah, thanks, Carl.
Thanks a lot. We really do appreciate that.
And all the statists are out there going, Carl!
To join the AMP program, you only need to commit to $5 a month. So Carl has gone above and beyond, and that we truly do appreciate that.
The AMP program is at amp.freetalklive.com.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe you said that. I don't know.
I might have, or I might not have, because that's how I roll. But we were talking about this decision by the Connecticut Supreme Court. You said you had a little bit more on that? Or?
Yeah, I'm just reading from their 71-page long decision here.
And we're not going to read all 71
conclusion,
pages.
Which thankfully is just a few paragraphs.
Right.
Where they bring up this what-if scenario surrounding Remington firearms and the school shooting at Sandy Hook.
Right.
And they bring up this, literally saying, if there were credible allegations that a firearm seller had run explicit advertisements depicting and glorifying school shootings and promoted their products in video games such as School Shooting that glorify and reward such unlawful conduct. So again, there's a game. They actually had a footnote there, so I went and I looked up the footnote to see what they were referring to. And at some point, they were introduced over this trial to this game called School Shooting. Now, of course, Remington is not a sponsor of School Shooting. Let's be clear.
Right.
But they're saying, well, if that there were a company like Remington that was sponsoring school shooting, well, then that would be really bad. And we don't think that the federal government, when they passed this thing called the PLCAA, the Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Acts, we don't think they intended to protect that kind of speech.
See, I think they should put out a game called School Shooting, where you go in and shoot and shoot people in a school, but if and only if there's a switch that you can flip to make everybody armed.
I think
it would be a very short game in that mode.
Yeah.
You walk in with a gun, you shoot one person, and 4 people shoot you.
I think we talked about school shooting on Free Talk Live when it came out, and if I recall correctly, there may be more than one game like this, but if I recall correctly, this game, you could be the SWAT team, so you could switch sides in that you didn't have to be the school shooter.
Right.
that you could be the other side. But regardless, it's not sponsored by Remington, okay? And there's no gun company that would sponsor a game like that because it would be a tremendously bad marketing decision.
Right.
That would be marketing malpractice.
Yeah. But in that case, then you would have hopefully the stockholders voting off the board of directors.
Sure, there would be
firing people.
Yeah, there would be
people would just boycott them. I mean, customers don't want that.
Right. There would be market punishments that would happen naturally because of that. But regardless, they're saying they admit after setting up this what-if scenario about this mythical gun company that would sponsor school shooting, they say, well, that's not this case. And yet the underlying legal principles are no different. They say once we accept the premise that Congress did not intend to immunize firearms suppliers who engage in truly unethical and irresponsible marketing practices promoting criminal conduct, and given that statutes such as CUTPA, which is the Connecticut trade something or other, anyway, I'll get back into that, are the only means available to address those types of wrongs. It falls to a jury to decide whether the promotional schemes alleged in the present case rise to the level of illegal trade practices and whether fault for the tragedy can be laid at their feet.
I just can't comprehend that in any way, because the fault for a school shooting has to do solely with the school shooter.
Individual.
The individual, a person, decided that they were going to cause mayhem, create this heinous event, and their finger is the only finger pulling the trigger. Until you pull the trigger on a firearm, nothing happens.
It's just a piece of metal.
Yeah, and it's...
So but they're going to try to argue that the marketing materials in this case were somehow geared towards encouraging people to do untoward things.
Yeah.
And it seems completely implausible to me that would be the case, having seen firearms magazine advertising.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. I've never seen an ad saying, if the next time you go to do a school shooting, think Remington. Who would do that? Nobody does that. And there's nothing that even...
Or even anything like... fires X amount of rounds per second to knock down the bodies. You know, I mean,
unless it says to knock down the cheerleaders, there's
so even in military magazines, military trade journals and things like that. I mean, it's going to show soldiers in action. But what does that have to do with deciding to go in and kill a bunch of first graders? Well, it has nothing to do.
As you pointed out, Rich, all they're doing here in this case is they're remanding the case back to, I think, Bridgeport Superior Court there in Connecticut.
And telling them they got it wrong.
And they're saying, you can allow this case to proceed. They say here, for the foregoing reasons, we conclude the trial court properly determined that although most of the plaintiff's claims should have been dismissed, so saying, yeah, you were right about throwing out 99% of the case, but in this one instance, they say the PLCAA, that's the federal firearms thing, doesn't bar the plaintiff's wrongful marketing claims, and that, at least to the extent that it prohibits the unethical advertising of dangerous products for illegal purposes, CUTPA, which is the Connecticut Unfair Trade Practices Act, they say CUTPA qualifies as a predicate statute, specifically if the defendants did indeed seek to expand the market for their assault weapons through advertising campaigns that encouraged consumers to use the weapons not for legal purposes such as self-defense, hunting, collecting, or target practice, but to launch offensive assaults against their perceived enemies, then we are aware of nothing in the text or legislative history of PLCAA to indicate that Congress intended to shield the defendants from liability for the tragedy that resulted. So they're not saying that they've even seen this evidence, because that's not what their case would have been about.
Right.
The Supreme Court hasn't seen whatever the alleged marketing practices are that they're talking about. They're just saying, well, we think you should be able to show that to the Superior Court.
Yeah,
that's what they're
there
saying.
is a possible interpretation under the law. They're saying it's not impossible for this case to win.
When we come back, we are going to talk about what is actually going to the Supreme Court, and that is whether hip-hop is lethal and should be banned.
We'd like to invite you to visit freekeen.com. Freekeen.com features audio, video, and blogs chronicling the transition to a voluntary society. Freekeen.com also has comments and discussion forums so you can be heard. Freekeen.com.
This is Free Talk Live, 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733 if you would like to join our conversation. We'd love to hear from you. But one thing I'd love to hear about right now, Ian, is what's going on this summer. What's going on this summer, more specifically in New Hampshire?
Technically, it's the week before summer, June 13th through 18th. So just before summer begins, spend the last week of spring with us at Forkfest 2019. It will be year number 3 for Forkfest, and it's happening in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Rogers Campground is the place. It's actually the 5 days prior to the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which I think is entering its either 16th or 17th year, depending on how you calculate it.
Yeah.
So it's a great excuse to come up and check out New Hampshire, come up and meet some of the folks who might be your neighbors if you make the migration here as part of the New Hampshire Freedom Migration. Go to forkfest.party. You'll find a link to our Telegram chat room there and the Forkfest forum, both of which are unofficial because there's nothing official with Forkfest. Not even the name is official. People have called it different things. It's been called Somalia Fest.
I want to call it Band Camp.
Band Camp. Yep, that was a great one. I love that one. Because all the people who are banned from the Porcupine Freedom Festival are welcome at Forkfest.
Yeah, that joke works best in print.
It does, doesn't it? But I got it.
Forkfest.party. Again, it is decentralized. So there's no central committee. There's no board of directors. There's no organizer except for each individual. So every individual comes to the event, decides what to do. You want to just hang out and camp and, build a fire or whatever, you can do that. Or you can create something for the other attendees to do. So maybe I know that Stephen and Derek from AnyPay.global have announced they intend to have basically a rave tent every single night at Forkfest.
They're raving lunatics.
It's going to be wonderful. And then there's also Jay Noon, one of our co-hosts, who has said he's going to be doing what he calls Man Camp. So offering classes on how to do manly things like, I don't know, make things out of metal and
manly stuff.
Get a chainsaw and who knows what. So that's going to be fun. And maybe you want to put on a musical event. Maybe you want to put on a poker game. It's just up to you. You decide. But make sure you let everybody know over on the Telegram chat or the forum over at forkfest.party. And again, the dates are June 13th through the 18th, coming up this summer or right before that.
Well, there you go. But if those music events do have hip-hop, wow, the Supreme Court is actually going to may choose to take this case up, which is basically U.S. versus hip-hop.
What?
Hip-hop wants the Supreme Court to rule again on when threatening to kill.
Who is hip-hop? Who is the entity being sued?
Yeah, and if it's U.S. versus hip-hop, then the U.S. would have been coming after them, right?
I'm reading a headline, which is always poorly written, which always requires me to explain what this article
Sorry, I
really
thought you were poorly writing this headline on the fly. Go ahead.
Where is
this
coming from? What's the
This is
source?
coming to us from CNN.com.
Okay.
But this basically, I'm just going to get into it. We'll discuss. As Jamal Knox's conviction for rapping that he would kill 2 Pittsburgh police officers made its way through the appellate courts, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that another rapper was protected in saying he wanted to kill a federal agent. Yet in ruling in Anthony Elonius's favor, legal analysts worried, the High Court has muddied what constitutes a true threat. The issue at hand in Knox's case, Justice Samuel Alito expressed a similar concern, particularly in regards to social media posting, in his partial dissent to the 2015 ruling. And we'll get into what that specific ruling was, but where Alito held that song lyrics performed live or in studio were unlikely to be regarded as a real threat, quote, statements on social media that are pointedly directed at their victims, by contrast, are much more likely to be taken seriously, unquote. That's Alito writing. Knox's legal team nodded to the confusion in their petition to the U.S. Supreme Court. His lawyers said that where most courts have ruled the standard is objective and requires only that, quote, a reasonable person, unquote, would regard the speech as a sincere threat, quote, other courts have held that the standard is subjective and assess only whether the speaker intended to communicate such a threat, unquote. So basically, you have a rapper who says some really vile things, depending on your point of view, whether it's vile or not. But he was advocating murder.
Right.
And
it sounds like he may have targeted 2 individual police officers, like specified them.
His threats have been very specific, and his threats have been, there was no question about who he was calling out.
So
now, what is subjective is whether he truly believes.
I want to shoot a cop is not, to me, a credible threat, and of course, want to isn't even a threat. Going to is a threat,
right?
But if it was, I'm going to whack those 2 guys who pulled me over last Tuesday, that's another matter. That could be a bona fide threat, and some of these gangster rappers have the entourage and have the ability to carry out such a threat. So it's not unreasonable. I wouldn't want people to be able to issue death threats so long as they put a bass beat behind it.
Oh God, yeah, and that's what we're going to get into. So I'm going to skip through this article a little bit so we can get into some of the specifics. And this has to do with a rapper known as Mayhem Mal and his buddy Rashid Beasley. Beasley goes as Soulja Bees, and Knox goes as Mayhem Mal. He was busted.
Do you know if that pun is intended, Soulja Bees? I sold you bees, man. Where are my bees? Sold them.
As the pair awaited trial, they produced a rap song, F the Police, and posted a video to social media where Alonis had invoked in...
That song came out in the early 90s.
Different song. You're thinking of... who am I thinking of? Who
F
did?
the Police.
Public Enemy?
Yeah, Public Enemy. Yeah.
That's a big maybe. I don't know, but I love the song.
No, it was NWA.
Yeah, it is. And this was obviously another song that these guys did.
The song
with the
title
same
we
name.
Can't say by the band name we can't say.
Yeah, right. That's right.
Right.
If it were only the after show. Oh, no, we still couldn't do it on the after show.
No,
because Twitch has a rule against the N-word.
Yeah, there you go. Where Alonis had invoked violence in a more abstract manner at the time, indicating he was, quote, testing the bounds of free speech, unquote. Knox and Beasley were more specific in their targets and aims. They refused to the arresting Pittsburgh officers by name. They referred to the arresting Pittsburgh officers by name, boasted knowledge of the officers' schedules, and laid out the violence they were willing to exact.
Oh, and we get quotes here.
Yes, we do. And I'm going to do my best on this before I have to dump my own self. Quote, I'm a jam these rusty knife all in his guts and chop his feet. You take money away from bees and all my S away from me. Well, your shift over at 3 and I'm going to F you up when you sleep. Knox rhymed at one point. Beasley went on to say
there rhymes
he was
in there? I'm not sure about that.
Well,
well, if you'd like me to rap
I don't know. And this same thing about the bees. You know, I wonder if these bees that were robbed were the same bees that were sold.
Beasley went on to say he was...
Poor bees. They're just innocent in all of this.
I'll tell you, the bees have been through a lot.
Everybody loves bees. Beasley went on to say he was, quote, strapped nasty, unquote. Like
that means he's got guns.
He's got guns, like Richard Poplawski, a reference to the heavily armed man who killed 3 Pittsburgh police officers in 2009. The song closes with Knox rapping, quote, let's kill the cops because they don't do us no good. Pulling your Glock out because I live in the hood, unquote.
That one rhymed.
Well, yeah. And I promise I will rap all these going forward. 855-450 free. What do you think? Should rappers be able to exercise their free speech and talk about killing police officers?
It's a good question, really.
It really is. 855-450 free. This is Free Talk Live. This is Free Talk Live, 855-450 free. That's 855-450-3733. And we've been talking about rap music. And I've been trying to share the court papers, I guess, and some of the potential testimony in this case. But it's really hard not to rap lyrics.
Are you a big rap fan?
No.
Okay.
No. There is certainly some that I like. I'm not like anti-hip-hop, anti-rap, but I like a lot of musical genres.
Sure.
Just that's not really one I'm really big on. But in this case, a gentleman who goes
But
by,
you want to spit some lyrics.
I do. I'm just,
bust a rhyme.
I do. In this case, we're talking about a gentleman who goes by the moniker Mayhem Mal. I'm trying to find his real name, but his last name
that doesn't sound like
Knox.
a gentleman.
Yeah, Jamal Knox, who was a rapper. And basically, he had said some very specific raps talking about being strap nasty, meaning he was heavily armed. This was his other partner rapper.
He specifically named the Pittsburgh officers who had busted him and his buddy Rashid Beasley, a.k.a. Soulja Bees, in 2012. After police found several bags of heroin, a gun, and $1,489 in their vehicle. So he names those officers and specifically says that he's going to jam a knife in one of their guts and chop his feet, as well as specifically says what time his shift is over, that he's going to F him up while he sleeps. That's part of the lyrics.
Yeah, one of the officers testified that he was shocked by the lyrics, and he retired from the police force and relocated because of the song. Well,
but just to be clear, the Supreme Court has docketed the case, but they have yet to determine whether it will be heard.
Correct. While the other officer found the video, quote, very upsetting, unquote, leaving him concerned for his family and his safety. He required time off and a security detail, he testified. This is a police officer. I'm sorry, but you're afraid of...
See, to me, that's a credible threat, though.
Really?
You named somebody. You indicated knowledge of their schedule. I mean, if you just walked up to somebody and said those words, hey, I'm going to cut your guts out, the guy would be perfectly justified in pulling out a gun and shooting him in the face. Mm-hmm. If somebody tells me I'm going to kill you, But
this was delivered in song lyrics, so it wasn't delivered directly to the person. Even though it did name the person specifically, it wasn't like sent in a letter to his house, I don't think.
But still, I think it's a bona fide threat with a backbeat. I really do. I think that it was intended to create terror in particular individuals.
I think it was intended to sell records. I understand your point, Rich. I certainly do, but I can't lose sight of the fact that these guys are rappers. They are professional rappers, and they are musicians. They are artists, and he, before this had happened, immediately said, "I want to push this stuff to see how far I can get with the protection of the First Amendment, and can I do this?"
Well, the unfortunate thing is the way you find out how far you can get is by losing a case.
Unfortunately.
And then you know what's too far.
Absolutely. But now we're going to go to the phones and talk to Free Market Penguin from Virginia. Penguin, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey. Yeah, I just wanted to call in, and I hate to bring up this topic again, but I'm going to bring up Venezuela. And Ian, another listener and I were talking in the Discord, and we were kind of taken aback how we both listened to the podcast and how it was dismissed offhand that it's unlikely that the U.S. has a role in the nationwide Venezuelan blackout.
Yeah, I'm just saying, based on Occam's razor, it's more likely to be bureaucratic incompetence and failure of central planning than it is to be an attack from the outside.
But it does illustrate why we shouldn't be meddling in other countries' at all because we give them excuses for
I
their
agree.
failure.
No, I agree that the government, we're not meddling, but you mean the federal government.
Yes, federal government. I didn't do any of this stuff. I've never even been to Venezuela.
I agree with you that they shouldn't be meddling, but just because the federal government has placed a they put sanctions on Venezuela.
Yes.
That doesn't necessarily mean that they're hacking their power system. There's not really any evidence that they have. And further, again, Occam's razor, the principle in explaining a thing, no more assumptions should be made than are necessary. I mean, it seems generally the idea is what is the most likely explanation is the most likely explanation, as I understand it, and in which case centralized management of property tends to fail. And so it's not unbelievable that the government in Venezuela has screwed this up. In fact, there was an Ask Me Anything on Reddit with a guy claiming to, I think his name was Alfonso, claiming to be in Venezuela, Ask Me Anything, basically. And he linked over to a guy who's on his Twitter, and I don't have it with me right now, but on his Twitter he assessed a lot of the situation with the power as like a professional, somebody who kind of is in that a bit, has the ability to professionally assess that. And he's talking about how like underneath a lot of these power lines, there's no mowing being done, there's no cutting down of trees, there's no maintenance whatsoever being done. They're not spending money on that stuff.
Yeah.
They don't have
any money to spend.
So
they've got plenty of money. It just won't buy any food.
Well, right. And so
I agree, and it obviously makes sense. No, I agree. There's no evidence, but I'd like to point out,
and there's evidence to the contrary, like lack of upkeep on the part of the government-run power company in Venezuela. There's evidence that they are doing a piss poor job with upkeep.
I do want to point out though that this is the frontier of modern war, not modern, but in the future of warfare. That the United States invests billions in offensive and defensive capabilities to harden the grid and attack others. And I'd like to point out that the government that occupies Palestine and the U.S. intelligence services have successfully and this is very openly, very well publicized event where they the Stuxnet virus, where they actually used a mole. I think the Iranian centrifuge was actually air-gapped from the internet. It should have been.
Yeah.
And they introduced a virus, and it had the centrifuge go out of control and destroyed the centrifuge and a lot of Iran's capability to make nuclear fissile material.
Yeah.
By
I don't think
that method.
I'm with you, Penguin, that I don't think that the U.S. certainly does not have a record of not doing things like this. And Stuxnet was a real good example of them aggressively going after a foreign power that they didn't agree with, and they did it in a way that damaged not only Iran but companies around the world, because Stuxnet, the genie got out of the bottle, and Stuxnet ended up being the basis for all kinds of viruses that we're still trying to deal with today. I don't think it's outside the realms. I tend to agree with these guys that in this case, I mean, you've got plenty of incompetence to point at and poor management, which is what you get out of central planning. You know what I mean?
I certainly agree, and I certainly am opposed to central planning. That is pretty much one of the big, buzzwords that I use. But I do want to point out that the Stuxnet and the fact that these are the capabilities that militaries worldwide are developing, and this is kind of the new frontier of warfare. So it's certainly be good to keep that possibility in mind.
And maybe maybe the federal government tipped over a domino kind of effect where all the failed upkeep resulted in an even worse outage than would otherwise have been through just a normal failure. But I still think it's likely that it was all the failure of the central planners, because again, this was the claim of the North Korean government for the longest time, for a couple of decades, as I understand it, when the power was relatively unreliable throughout North Korea, where the places where they did have power at all, it was unreliable. It would be going off in the middle of the night for various different times, multiple times per week, as I understand it. And the official state excuse was, well, we're under attack from the U.S. government. The U.S. government is taking down our power grid constantly. We just can't do anything about it. We're just under attack by it's just, come on. That's unbelievable that would really be the truth.
Level of crying wolf.
Honestly, that's normal in most of the world.
It's the claim.
You have power some of the time.
Yeah.
But the point that he brings...
I mean, I can see reasons that they might do that.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
But you don't have to. They're that incompetent. These are the communists we're talking about
but
here.
Of course, they're not going to admit to their own incompetence.
Right, but you're also dealing with U.S. imperialism that has something like 100-year-old history of mucking about in other people's countries. That's the part.
And
hey,
that's why
Penguin,
arms neutrality is so important to me.
Is it? We'll have to talk about net neutrality, or at least whatever
Arms
net neutrality.
I'm talking about a foreign policy of neutrality.
Yeah, it's a good
policy.
We'll see you tomorrow night. freetalklive.com. Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get 1 free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.